Welcome everybody. We have a nice crowd here. Hopefully the air is going to be enough until the end. Welcome to our second UX Budapest meetup in this IBM campus. Today we are going to have a pretty good agenda. My name is Zoltán Korn. I'm going to be the host for you today. We have a meetup on design systems, as you've seen in the program. We have 3 pretty good talks. We went through the content already, and I think it's going to be super informative for many of us. We're excited about this event because a couple of months ago, personal note, warning, a couple of months ago I started to work closely with our design system team as their design manager. IBM Cloud design system is called Carbon for Cloud. And when I took over that team, my program director asked, how would you feel about leading this team? I was like, yeah, sure, it's a design system, everything is established, we have rules and we have documentation, everything is in good shape, it's not a big deal. He asked me, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, sure, there's nothing exciting there, I'm happy to do it, and oh boy, I was wrong. We ran into so many challenges, but when I say challenges, not like a real problem, it's more like exciting design challenge to solve. Especially if you're working in a complex environment in a huge organization. And as I was speaking to the speakers of this event, I was so happy to realize that there are so many similar issues and similar exciting design challenges to solve in other businesses as well. So I think today is going to be a great opportunity for us to learn about that as well, and also to maybe debunk the myth that if a design system, then everything is so much easier. It is easier, but there's other challenges to solve. So that said, we have 3 speakers, as I said. The first is going to be Gary from Telecom. He's going to share a pretty insightful case study how they introduced and switched to a new design system at Telecom. So with that said, Gary, the stage is yours.
Thanks. So, yeah, there's a lot of faces. I hope I will not forget everything immediately when I'm looking at you. But
1 second, it's going to be good.
hopefully. Okay, so I just need a timer here because it's helping to keep on time. So, hi everyone. My name is Gary Hidefali. I'm one of the product level design system manager at Deutsche Telekom Design Hub, and I'm a designer since 2012. And I've worked mostly on studio side, but 2 years ago I joined Telecom, especially the one-shop team. And in the next 50 minutes I will be talking to you about why Telecom created a new design brand and what challenges comes when you have to adapt this new brand into your project. So this is Design Hub, and we are working on several different products for Deutsche Telekom, like the TV, the app, the one shop, and as you may already encounter the TV and the app here in Hungary. But if you are curious about the web shop, you have to check, for example, Telekom.de, because the Hungarian, the Magyar Telekom doesn't use the central product. But before I jump into the presentations topic, then I have 2 questions for you, but don't worry. So the first question is, who here has ever redesigned a website, product, or an application? Please raise your hands if you have. Cool, thanks. And the second question is, who managed to do this smoothly? Hands or feet up? Okay, thanks. I can tell you that redesigning in a large company aren't seamless either. So let's start with the fact that Telecom and the product and the mother company, parent company, already had a Telecom brand guide, but it didn't include a central design system. So we have the products like the app, the TV, the shop, and we have 9+ application across the company. So these products weren't centralized. Each 11 company created their own product in their own way. So you can imagine that it led to inconsistencies and both the appearance and the and the functionality. So the central team, Telecom started to centralize these products. So, but due to the huge amount of legacy, although the products started to be converged, we still had many inconsistencies. So this is what the centrally created One Experience design system aimed to eliminate. But in addition to the design system, it includes a design identity and an accessibility guideline too. So it's much more than just a design system, it's more like the telecom new digital identity. So sounds good so far, right? So the expectation were sky high. Every product team was hoping that it will solve everything, like no more inconsistencies or simplified design processes or word piece, why not? But let's see how it worked in one shop. So 6 years ago, the idea of a central web shop was conceived, originally driven by Telecom Polska's web shop, and I think Austria, Slovakia, and Czech, they are also wanted to join to this initiative. So this was the trigger of the central product. Then the product started to scale up, and the design system expanded. And after 3 years ago, after comprehensive research, we started to redesign the major, the most important pages, like the tariff listing page, the product listing page, the product detail page. So in the meantime, we had to create the design system manager role because we had to manage 2 visual languages at the same time. So, and then last year, the One Experience arrived, along with the global design system and the storybook, which is no longer limited to just our products. So, for those who are unfamiliar with Storybook is an open source JavaScript-based front-end development tool that enables isolated development, testing, and documentation of the UI components. So this is important because we always can check if the developed version of the component aligns with the designs. And this storybook is used not only by the devs but by the designers, POs, subsidiaries, accessibility experts, and so on. So in 2024, we started to redesign one-shot checkout because this page uses the oldest version of the website of the design system, and it's a business critical page, so we had to rebuild it. And since it's visually less complex, it allowed us to learn more easily the rules of the new design language. Like we have to use more white spaces or bigger components, or we had to use progressive disclosure and stuff like that. So we started to create design concepts, constantly aligned with the global team, and they helped us with questions and suggestions to create a unified visual language. When we are finished we finished this exploration and we had the direction, we started to build all of the steps through the checkout. So it sounds easy, right? Well, in our cases, we have to cover 8 countries at once. So in a roughly 8-step checkout means 64 page variations. So, and it's just desktop only, and 56 module variations. And this is how looks our Figma master module file. I know it's a little bit blurry, but I wanted to give you a glimpse, but and unfortunately I cannot show it in more detail because it's a business secret or something. So, but here's a fun fact. We are using input field only in this checkout file 654 times. So if you need to update this component, that requires caution, because if you mess something up, then it could cause hours of maintenance work. So I hope you can see this right, because this is how it looks when you have more than 600 components in one single file. So currently we have 3 different design systems running simultaneously in one shop. So you can imagine how much European Accessibility Act hits hard in such a setup. But we are working on full speed on ensuring that only one remains, the Highlander, the one experience. So what were our biggest challenges? Basically, the first one was not every components come from the global library. So sometimes if we are talking about, sometimes some components, like what I mentioned earlier, the modules in the checkout can be a part of the global library because it's just too specific. So someone has to build those components, but it leads to the question, which components should be managed at the product level and which at the global level. So in another example, if we have, for example, a tag which could be used by other components, by other products as well, then it's not always clear which team should take the responsibility to build it. And we agreed that we can't wait for the global team, because since we are constantly needs to deliver new features, and we can't wait for the global team because they have to serve other products as well, and they have their own priorities. So we have to create our own components in our level. So the next question and the next challenge was, how do we build these components at the product level? Because every designer builds their components in their own way, so which is not a problem itself. So, but if there is a global library that it's worth to following it. So we decided we need to match the quality of the global design system, because our system, thank God, it's well documented, so we can use it as a basis. And in the meantime, our designers can focusing on the delivery, and while the design system manager ensuring the high quality components. So, but why does the product library have to match the quality of the global library? Well, first is, if we are hitting the global standards, that in terms of naming and structuring the components, that help the developers to build those components. And the second, if there is a component which could be used by other products, then the global team can easily take it over if they want, because it's the same. So, but what happens if something is changing in the global library? Well, do you remember the input field example? Because it's not an accident. It's really happened. So sometimes components changes because it can be outdated because the new feature or design. So in those cases, we have to update every affected component. And as I mentioned, it could take tons of extra maintenance work. But to be honest, it's really part of the job, so it's really natural. But in this case, the design system manager can help, because that role can allow the designers to focus on the delivery, and the design system manager can ensure the quality of the components and updating all of the components. So the role and the fact that the product level design system manager is not just building and managing and documenting the components. We have to be up to date with the changes of the global design system components and stuff like that. We have to keep an eye on solutions, what's going on in the other products as well. And we are facilitates meetings where everyone in the one shop can be attend, like the UX UI designers, the researchers, accessibility experts, and so on. And they can bring up topics, what type of components do we need to use, or how do we solve a specific design problem, and so on. And those questions that we cannot answer there, we can take it over to the global teams weekly meeting where every products can be attended. So, okay, we heard a lot, but what does a design system provide and what doesn't it? You ask me, because you asked me because I'm here. So, what it provides is a long-term sustainability, a strong foundation and consistency, and cost saving for the company. And what doesn't provide is universal solutions for every problem, replacement for UI design work, and unchanging and static design system because a good system always evolving. So what have we learned during this process? The first, communication between teams is crucial. I know it sounds generic, but it's really really an important part, because if you have a question, it's always easy to immediately ask the responsible person, like the global team or your design system manager, and get on the right track and avoid the dead ends. The second is delivery can't stop just because something is missing. So we cannot wait to the global team to deliver something that we need, because they have to serve other products and they have their own priorities. So that's why we need a design system manager at the product level who ensure high quality components and supports both designers and developers. And third one is quality of the product level components should match the global one, because this is important, because if we build a component on the product level that could be part of the global, on the product level that could be part of the global library, that helps the global team to take it over if it's needed. And the final one, and I think this is the most important one, it's not enough for the design system to only exist in Figma. There needs to be an accessible and developed version. So building a design system using for example, the storybook, it's really crucial because it's greatly increases the efficiency and it saves cost to the company. And this interactive library is used not only by the developers, but by the designers, the POs, and NATCOs, subsidiaries, and accessibility experts and so on. And it's important because if we have to check the quality of a developed component, we always can go there and check if it's aligns with the Figma design or not. And the final one, if there is a new regulation, if a new regulation comes, like the European Accessibility Act or previously the Omnibus, then you can react much faster with this. So this was what I wanted to share with you and give you a glimpse behind the scenes. And I hope you find it interesting, and thank you for your attention. Feel free to reach out, and Happy New Year. Bye. No questions. Okay. Yeah, okay, go on.
Thank you for the presentation. It was really helpful. I was wondering, on your last slide, you mentioned at the beginning that each component that is being designed and built on the product level should potentially ideally follow this global standard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In a scenario that you would need a new component for a product, so another global level.
Yeah.
In a product, and the responsible designer proceeds with the design, is there any approval level that the designer should follow? Are you sending it to your design system team on a global level to approve that quality? Or what's the process?
So in our case, it's we have multiple levels. So first, when a designer builds a component, currently we have an interim library where we are collecting all of the components that built by the others, not by the design system managers. And we as a design system manager, we are constantly rebuilding those components, so making sure that components reach the level. And we have to understand what the level is. So we have to really understand how the components are built in a global level. And first, we are building those components, we are making sure everything is fine, and if needed, because we are talking about a more complex one, then we have these weekly meetings with the global team that I mentioned, and we can bring those components there and ask them that, hey, we have this component, we want to use this like this, what do you think? And they always help us to finalize and push that component forward in a good direction. And after, when we think that it's high enough, it's well made enough, then that will be the final version of the product level component.
Can
You're
I
welcome.
ask?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Do you have an open source part of your design system?
No.
And what do you think, or what is your take on the open source design system, and what do you think that what a company can benefit from if they have it? And if this is so cool, why don't the biggest companies use open source?
Good question. We don't have open source version of this design system. I don't know why. It's just, I don't know, because of in telecom we have really high regulations of this, so we cannot use it anymore. So I don't know. The other part of the question, I don't know. Me as a designer, I really always like to see what other teams are doing, and I can use it as an example. But to be honest, I don't know what's the benefit if you have an open source design system. Sorry.
Thank you. No, I'm just curious. Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
So what is the kind of global library? So is it atomic design elements or patterns, or what does adapter use in your work?
Okay. So in our case, the global components contains the most important part of the design system. Like we have variables there, we have grids, we have colors, fonts, tokenized everything, and we have the most used components like buttons, input fields, tags, and so on. And if we are talking about the product level, it's more like a component that needs to be a component, but too complex and too product specific to take part of the global one. So if I'm showing to one of the example here, so you can see here, this component, this is a product level component. And this is a global, this section, part of the global, but we need a different one, so we have a product level. And yeah, link also global. So this is how we are differentiate basically the things. And some cases, yeah, basically if we have to decide where needs to be lived that component, we are always thinking of, okay, why, how much, so how much this, so, okay, so we always have to think about that, how complex that, and how specific that one component. And this is what helps us to decide, basically. Any other question? Oh, we are out of time. Okay.
Thank you, Gregor. While we're transitioning into our next speaker, is going to be Vanni. She's going to talk about something near and dear to my heart, which is going to be the relationship between design systems and accessibility and how the two can impact each other. Again, I speak from experience. We just went through a pretty comprehensive project where we had to assess, thousands of different accessibility issues and verify them and understand how we can resolve it. And by doing so, realize how much impact the design system has on this resolution rate. So with that said, let me hand it over to Fanny.
Hi everyone, my name is Fanny. I'm the Design System Manager at GoTo, and today I will talk to you about how you can scale accessibility to design systems. So my agenda is, first, I will talk about what accessibility is, why is it matter, touching on ethical, business, and legal perspectives. Then I share some key points on how design system can act as an accelerator for accessibility. And third, I will tell you how we do it at GoTo that goes beyond the design system level. And in the end, we will have roughly 5 minutes for Q&A. So why does accessibility matter? Disability affects more people than you think. Let's start with a scale. More than 1.3 billion people worldwide, according to the World Health Organization, live with some form of disability. That's roughly 1 in 6 people globally. And that number includes a wide range of experiences. It's not just what we tend to think of. It includes invisible disabilities like neurodivergence, hearing loss, chronic fatigue, and more. Disability also intersects with other aspects of life, such as age. As we grow older, we are more likely to experience a disability. Temporary impairments, like a broken arm or recovery from surgery, and even situational disabilities, but more on that later. When we talk about accessibility, we mean designing products, services, and environments so that they can be used by as many people as possible. Accessibility means designing so that everyone can participate. You often see the word A11Y, which is a numeronym. It stands for the word accessibility with the 11 letters between the A and the Y replaced by the number 11. Good accessible design skills. If you ever use captions on your phone in a noisy place or operated your car hands-free, you benefited from inclusive design. That's why accessibility isn't a feature, it's a design mindset. Microsoft, known for its work for inclusive design, developed the Persona Spectrum, a tool that helps build empathy. It maps permanent, temporary, and situational disabilities. For example, permanent can be blindness or ALS, temporary could be eye infection or an arm injury, and situational is when you look at your screen in bright sunlight or you're carrying a bag. Think about someone with one arm. That could be permanent, or it could be someone with a broken wrist, or a parent holding a baby, or someone carrying a heavy grocery bag. Or think about a feature, such as keyboard shortcuts. They might be vital for someone with limited mobility, but they are also the favorite of power users and multitaskers. A design win across the board that became a productivity booster for everyone. Same barrier, different reason. And the takeaway? Designing for the edge cases actually benefits everyone. Accessibility laws are driving global change, and compliance with standards like WCAG or with laws such as the European Accessibility Act and Section 508 is increasingly required to operate or expand your business. While WCAG is not a law itself, it's a technical benchmark referenced by most of these regulations, so achieving compliance is essential, but just the beginning. True inclusion goes beyond checklists to real usability. The European Accessibility Act mainly covers B2C, so business to consumer, digital products and services for customers, while B2B offerings are generally outside of its direct scope, unless they are part of a supply chain leading into end users. So for example, a software component that is integrated into consumer products. Accessibility isn't just a legal checkbox, it's a competitive advantage that helps us reach more users, win new businesses, and deliver inclusive products. Whether B2B, B2C, or B2B2C, accessible products expands our market, build loyalty, and often require to win or even compete for deals, making accessibility central to both customer success and long-term business growth. In B2C, accessibility allows us to connect with over 1 billion people with disabilities, plus their network, driving higher ratings and loyalty. In B2B, it's essential for landing deals in industries like government, education, or healthcare, where accessibility is a prerequisite. In B2B2C, it enables platforms like Shopify to help their clients serve every end consumer, opening new opportunities, ensuring long-term business growth. Now, let's see how design systems can help you with that, acting as an accelerator for accessibility. What does a good design system provide for accessibility? It scales. It scales accessibility practices from one team to every product, every time. Design systems do this or can do these in 3 different ways. First, good foundations. Second, accessible components. And third, clear guidelines and documentation. What makes good foundations that are accessible by default, you may ask? Comprehensive foundation coverage with semantic tokens. At GoTo, we use the design system principles, the atomic ones, building our system from small reusable tokens like color, spacing, motion, and so on. By naming and grouping them semantically, so such as icon color danger default instead of red 500, we make it easy for our designers to choose accessible combinations without guessing. VCAG AA color compliance. Every color pairing available in the design system meets or exceeds VCAG AA color contrast standards, ensuring text, UI elements are readable for as many people as possible. Dynamic theming. A robust token system means switching between light and dark mode is seamless. Plus, we use a Figma integration, meaning that our tokens are abstracted directly from Figma using Figma API. This keeps our designs and code in check and in sync, eliminating human error, rework, and ensuring the accessibility you see in the designs is what we ship to users. And let's touch on the component level accessibility, where the design system really accelerates inclusive product development. Reusable components like buttons, input fields, models, navigations shouldn't just look consistent. They need to be accessible by default. But what does that mean in practice? Focus visibility. Every interactive element has a clear visible focus state for those using keyboard navigation or assistive technologies. Touch targets. Components maintain minimum size and spacing for ease of use on any device. Keyboard navigation. Important to note, component level keyboard navigation. All components are fully operable by keyboard with logical tab order and shortcuts. Responsiveness. Components adapt smoothly to all screen sizes and devices, plus accessibility testing. Components are regularly checked to ensure ongoing accessibility. There are 2 key approaches, and I would say that you have to use both, most likely. The first one is doing it proactively by embedding accessibility into design handoffs and reviewing new implementations. And the second one is retrospectively, through larger audits and fixing any discovered issues. And the beauty of this approach is that every product team that uses these components and the design system itself inherits accessibility by default. It's all about shifting accessibility left, building it in at the design system level so teams can focus on delivering innovation. The third pillar of an effective accessibility-focused design system is clear guidelines and documentations. For example, providing how-tos for everyone. We offer guidelines tailored for product designers, content designers, engineering, product managers, and anyone interested. For example, guidelines on how to fill out your VPAD. We also share annotation best practices for design handoffs, and we have content design guidelines addressing everything from plain language, voice and tone, alt text, and error handling. We also curate our resources, so we share internal and external materials from checklists and code examples to articles and practical tools so team can learn continuously and stay up to date. While a robust design system can set powerful foundations, build accessible components, and provide clear guidelines, there are important areas where the responsibility extends beyond the design system team. So now let's take a look at what is not part of the design system team. For example, page level hierarchy. Product teams decide the structure and heading order of each page to fit context and user needs. Semantic HTML. Implementation teams should ensure correct use of headings, lists, regions for proper structure. Accessibility labels. Teams must add meaningful labels and alt text to specific to each context. Responsiveness. Teams must test layouts for real content and devices beyond what components provide. Accessible copywriting. Teams are responsible for writing clear, inclusive content using the design system's guidelines. Page level testing. Every page and every flow needs to be tested in context, since unique combos may introduce new issues. So in short, the design system sets the standards, but true accessibility really depends on thoughtful decision from everyone building the product. Now, I'm going to walk you through what extra steps we take at GoTo beyond the design system to develop accessible practices so that we can build more inclusive products. One of the most meaningful ways we deliver on accessibility and our customer-obsessed values is by testing our products with people who have experience with disabilities. That's why we partnered up with Fable, a leader in accessibility research and user testing. This partnership gives us, first of all, authentic feedback, real insights into where our products meet accessibility needs and where they fall short, straight from those who use them. Also, this means continuous improvement. This isn't just a one-time audit, it's an ongoing relationship to ensure accessibility becomes part of our product DNA. We also recognize the need to streamline accessibility compliance, especially as VPAT requests have been increasing. To address this, we are setting up a centralized hub and a formal workflow for creating, updating, and managing VPATs, voluntary product accessibility templates. This process gives us or helps us establish clear ownership, assign responsibility for annual VPAT updates, and makes it easier for product, legal, and compliance team to collaborate and respond quickly to customer needs. By centralizing this approach, we are building a scalable and a proactive process for accessibility across all products. And this one is fresh off the press. So Global Accessibility Awareness Day takes place in every May, and this year at GoTo, we expanded it into a month-long series, Accessibility Awareness Month at GoTo, and my partner in crime is sitting in the audience. We set out to boost accessibility awareness and best practices across GoTo's product, engineering, and UX teams. Our month-long initiative featured 9 diverse speakers, including internal experts and external thought leaders from fields such as UX design, content design, engineering, product, legal, and research. The sessions drew strong engagement and participation across the company, with all resources and recordings shared broadly. Plus, we used this opportunity to survey our community, so now we are better equipped to tailor future sessions and resources to our team's needs. And with that, thank you for listening. Let's have a Q&A. Yes.
Hi, I have a question. It's kind of tied to what the top guy presented. There's a lot of accessibility to signing all of that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, how do you test for television? Because you say that they have TV, they're designed for TV. But do you have not smart TVs, but the kind of analog TVs, the one that you have to use a remote? Do they have assistive readers? How do you test for television?
an amazing question. We actually don't test for TVs. We test on mobile devices like smartphones and tablets and desktop. I would imagine, and thanks to the.
We do.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
Hi, Ms. Tamas from Deutsche Telekom. So we do tests with, what was the commissioner? Hey. So TV is very specific in all ways. So when it comes to us, we've been using Google's Android TV, so the platform, and tests, so accessibility testing is open, right? Yeah. So we do have like these lab environments, and we do access our users in their homes. Because like with people living with various impairments, you know, one of the main methodology that you do visit people at home. So we have a large group of customers, volunteers, who are ready for testing TV products. Because like for us, the experience is end to end from, you know, ordering to unpackaging and then installing the live TV, and then the TV experience itself. So it's like an on-site, at home. So we have a team for that. If that answers your question, and we record every session. You know, we do approval. That I can tell you more in the break.
Yeah.
Find me with a cap, you know.
Thanks. So manual testing. Yes.
So I noticed you have lots of bugs coming back from Fable. How do you prioritize with them? Is it like a correlative system that, I don't know, short-sightedness gets higher priority, or, you know, like what is your system?
So how we partnered up with Fable is that either we use their researchers or our internal research team is present during those user interviews and tests, and they have a readout, share out for the whole product team, and then it's usually the product managers who prioritize what needs to be addressed, and that really is product specific, so I don't have details on that.
All right, thank you. Great talk.
I mean, what I can share is we usually test the most crucial flows, like probably every product has, like onboarding, or in one of our examples is starting a session in this product. So testing the whole flow, and then where it falls short, we prioritize those. All right, thank you so much.
One more.
Yes.
So you mentioned WCAG, and EU Accessibility Act was also mentioned a couple of times. This is more about the work process. So there is a long list of requirements in the WCA or the EU Accessibility Act. How do you decide at the company who's responsible for what? Because a lot of the things are not purely UX or design related, but screen readers, development whatsoever. Like, how does it land in someone's desk, and who is like assigning or deciding this responsibility?
So we are a portfolio company with a lot of products for different fields, and the EAA doesn't apply to us because we only sell to B2B, but we have other accessibility laws that require us to be compliant or show process of compliance and what are the steps we are taking towards accessibility. And what you said is really important. What I see usually in companies, the driver of this change can be or are UX or product designers, but it's really important to highlight that it's a shared responsibility and should be a shared responsibility. So we have champions from legal, product management, UX, content design, research and engineering. And what we did during that 1 month is basically gave a mic to them, let them speak how they, if we had an engineer internally who showed us best practices, how to test for accessibility and how, like, what to pay attention to when you're implementing features. So it's really important to highlight that. And what I would say is that you have to find your champions in each field. But again, it's tricky because then every engineer will go to that one engineer champion. So like, it's a fine balance and it takes time. Thank you very much.
Okay, Bonnie, while we're doing the transition, the last question and answer was a pretty good segue to the third topic, which is actually about collaborating, inspiring each other, and making sure that design systems are a team sport, and so is UX, and so is designing experiences. With that said, let me hand it over as soon as this screen will show up. So Jiang. Jiang is a design lead on one of my team in Carbon for Cloud, and she's done a lot getting the IBM Cloud experience to the next level in the last few years. So take it away.
Thank you, Zoltan. All right, hello everyone. Thank you all for having me here today. My name is Jiang, and I wanted to do a little bit of a short intro because I'm new to the city, the space, these people, but I'm very excited to be here. I was born and raised in South Korea, but I spent a very large portion of my childhood in the Netherlands and studied industrial design at Rhode Island School of Design. And I ended up in Germany and somehow started crafting my experience design career out of the IBM Studios Billingen location in the southern part of Germany for about the last 6 years of my career. When I first joined IBM, I was lucky enough to craft IBM Cloud offering from scratch, from the whiteboard design sketches to when it GA'd, what is today known as IBM Cloud Code Engine. And today I am leading a team called Carbon for Cloud, pushing and pulling the boundaries of the Carbon design system, figuring out specific components and patterns that best suit the IBM Cloud audience and use cases. Now, Carbon for Cloud is based out of the foundational layer of the IBM design language, where it is the guiding ethos of how we define ourselves as IBM. So anything like color, icon, typography, and images that define us to be IBM. And a layer on top of that is the Carbon design system, which are the pieces, the components, and patterns that all product experiences need to consume as a digital component and rules and guidelines we have at IBM. And the final layer is where Carbon for Cloud comes in, which is very specific to the IBM Cloud users' use cases and problems we solve, intertwined with the complexity of the technology as an extended Carbon design system, as a design system on its own. Now, today's talk is going to be how our team designed against the odds, but specifically in a nutshell, how we developed, designed, and shipped Carbon for Cloud as a team in the most unconventional yet challenging environments at an enterprise setting. I say this because this story alone is a captured moment and a reflection personally for myself, leading this team and also carrying on this mission, because we really did not have anything in hand. One of the 3 most obvious key ingredients you need to develop and release a design system, but we had none. So hopefully this story helps you inspire or get you inspired anytime you face similar challenges in your context and in your problem in your daily role or projects. So IBM Cloud looked like this since 2019, which was the last time the Carbon design system redesigned any parts of a drastic UI collection. while there was nothing terribly wrong or incorrect or broken, it wasn't really serving our users right because they said things like, oh, this looks very outdated. It looks too complicated. It also doesn't meet the standards that the technology evolved, and it's really feeling like it's behind competition. So we thought as the wider IBM Cloud Design team, this was the perfect opportunity to question and think about what is next for IBM Cloud. As a collective, collaborative momentum, we all sat together to question what is next? What has to change to be IBM Cloud? What needs to be updated? And what does that look and feel like? That is when we had some answers. And that is also when that answer and the solutions that the team created fell on our plate as the Carbon for Cloud design team to translate that vision into something that is tangible, that is something that is transformative at the IBM Cloud platform level. But how? It was literally the question I had and it was repeating in every meeting I joined because it was also shortly after I joined the Carbon for Cloud team. And most importantly, I had no clue because this is not how a platform level, enterprise level design system develops, changes, and evolves their design. But we had no choice as a team because we really believed in the mission and the vision that this was a positive change. This is something that the IBM Cloud platform needs to drive forward. So we focused on what we had to deliver as a designer and as a design team. And we really wanted to do what we can to inspire people to drive through action. There's no sound? Should I? 1 second.
Hold on. Now. Ambient.
Amazing, you guys are also inspired by this video. That is exactly what we did because we really focused on a story that was powerful enough to inspire action. And things that we did additional to this effort is create things and distribute community efforts like breakfast and crit. And this is quite literal because we actually bribed folks to come in for breakfast burritos and of course gave them sticky notes and Sharpies. So we invited them for dialogue, for collaboration, for team effort, and actually making and drawing the lines between inspiration and action so they can also drive changes with us. So we decided to make sure that this is not just our team as Carbon for Cloud solving these specific component levels, but listening to the community, the actual users of our products, and make sure that everyone was included in this conversation. As you can see, we offered very inclusive examples and crit sessions where it was one-to-one to the virtual environment and the physical environment where we hosted and organized breakfast and crit, or anything else that we decide to call it at the moment of, to proceed and push through this project. And the results were phenomenal because this invited everyone to take ownership in this initiative, in this vision, and be equally excited about making changes and also influencing the design decisions we were making collaboratively as a team. Now, the biggest lesson our team carried on from this first chapter of Designing Against the Odds is that as designers, we need to remember that we have very powerful toolboxes at the back of our pockets, that well-crafted design can really inspire a lot and make changes in ways that you had never imagined. So anytime that your problem seems and feels like it's too big and almost impossible to fix or solve, I highly encourage you to think about things that you can do in small steps as designers, carrying through the power of storytelling and inspiration. Now, the second problem was that we had no development resources dedicated or allocated for this project. But it didn't really take us long to understand from our community drive and driven projects like Breakfast and Crit that we had more than 110 UI developers across IBM Cloud. And so we asked ourselves, what if we married these two together? That's when we thought about an initiative called Paratroopers, quite literally, because we sent over Carbon for Cloud designers over to an IBM Cloud product with development resources, and we collaborated on developing components together. We were stress testing, pulling and pushing the boundaries of a component in a very specific product use case, and also heard closely from our actual users of the components and of our design system. In return, we got coded components back. And that is how we were embedded deeply in the user research of these components, and also invited these product teams to help us draft and guide and enrich our design guidance together. As a result, we were able to transform many of our very foundational components, black and white. It used to be very high contrast, but we definitely pursued the design direction of what was aligned with the vision that we had created. All the UIs and the delightful UI experiences that you saw in the video were coming together in these puzzle pieces. And ultimately, we had a full collection of net new and evolved set of components in our library. And as a result, we were able to create a fully coded library in our storybook with more than 30% of UI developers helping contribute, own, or maintain at least one of these components. However, component level were not enough, because the vision that we wanted to carry over was not those individual puzzle pieces. It was an experience that we wanted to change, and that required an end-to-end experience adoption. So we had to pivot once again and strategically embed ourselves into projects where there was a deadline, there was a dedicated team, but work on transforming larger areas of experiences that was not just about components. So we transformed very high contrast, heavy cognitive load projects and pages that were very often used or repeated across the platform into things that felt very light, minimal, delightful, and simplified to yet again carry on the mission that we originally envisioned as Carbon for Cloud. The biggest lesson here in the second chapter of the story is to reframe constraints as opportunities. Not having the most obvious yet mandatory resource as designers was a blocker, but we really did not let that blocker stop us. Instead, we chose the route of hitchhiking our way through and actually ended up further along the journey than we expected. So anytime you feel like there's a blocker you cannot solve or remove, think around it and think about ways that you can turn that opportunity into your, the ways that you can turn that threat into your opportunity. Now the project started to gain a lot of momentum because first, we started off by inspiring action. Secondly, we onboarded not just designers, but developers as well. And a lot of executives and a lot of high visibility business initiatives also started to recognize our efforts. But it was great, momentum was there, but speed was missing. That's when we had to pivot once again and make a very bold move into integrating all of our tools and processes only in working in Figma. As a design system team, that was a very risky move because it made us very vulnerable to all feedback, to all questions, to all updates very instantaneously. And it was not very joyful in the beginning because I woke up and I saw 30, 40, 50 messages every day in my inbox every time we had released new guidance, new updates to our design system on Figma, because it was so easy for these folks to ask questions. It was so easy for them to react to the changes we were making. But we had to stick to the plan because it was so clear that there was a big wave behind us. And I don't know if anyone you have surfed before, but it was the time to get on that surfing board and move because as important as it is to be perfect as a design system team, it was also so valuable for us to onboard onto that momentum to ship our product. Shipping and moving fast with the project actually gave us a benefit that we did not plan or we did not anticipate, and that is time. Because we saved time updating Storybook, then to the design guidance, then to the Figma library, we had time to work with these product teams one-on-one to drive pixel perfect, if not perfect, foundational designs that we can ship. So we worked very closely with product teams with very high visibility, business critical, and revenue generating products to have very consistent, unified, yet still unique in their own products and services to achieve this level of what we call Carbon for Cloud. So finally, I do recommend as one of the biggest takeaways to break the pattern when you can, because when you break the patterns of the conventional ways that you work, the normal ways of doing things, or doing things just because it was like this and it's okay to be like this, that is when you start discovering new things. That is when you start solving problems in a different way, especially contextually to the problem that you are trying to resolve. So in a nutshell, designers, hopefully all of you or most of you are designers, I do want to recommend start being comfortable with imperfect situations, because perfection in the real world industry never exists. So the sooner you embrace your discomfort, that's when you'll start seeing progress. And as a design system designer, this is very risky to say, but I do want to highly advise you to share your work openly and early on. Because when you start trusting the process and the community you work with, that is when you start discovering solutions and ways around the blockers in ways you never imagined. Thirdly, okay, I do want to recommend you to also start reframing your constraints, Because when you start reframing those constraints is when you see the other side of the coin. It can really unlock the unconventional, unlock the new and the innovative solutions you also never foresaw in your process or ways of breaking this problem down. Now, last but not least, you already got a preview, but the most important secret ingredient in all of this that I do think why our team did not call it quits and was able to push through the finish line is because we celebrated every win. And I don't just say this is a very essential ingredient in all of this process from start to finish because it matters. It matters and gives you the energy when you believe things are on the edge, when you are stressed, when you're sad, when you're very discouraged to fight against these odds. And as a global team, distributed across Hungary, different parts of the USA, and Germany, we made sure this happened because opportunities like this made us feel like our wins were real. No other metrics, numbers, user feedback could prove it mattered, and this is what really mattered for us as a team to re-energize, to recharge, basically, to get together and really think and talk about the moments that we brought it to the finish line. This is a quote that really resonated with me that I found. Simon Sinek is probably a very famous dude who has a lot of quotes and books and talks, but pretty much sums up the overall theme of this talk. And it's that lack of time, lack of resources, and optimism is the result of innovation. And I think it really hits different when you have this perspective in mind as you solve your everyday struggles. Design systems or whatever you do in the industry is never perfect and it's never easy. And I do think I will continue, and I am another chapter of Designing Against the Odds, but I have the belief that together I can make it, and we can make it. And with the wider team, we can make it. And we're on another chapter to make it more interesting, to make it more innovative, and improve to something that was different than yesterday. So, if you would like to read this story as a Medium article, or share it with anyone else who couldn't make it to this talk today, please take a picture of this QR code and let's stay connected. Any questions?
Hi, I'm Ajay. I'm curious about the size of your team.
Hey, can you hear me? Yes. So I'm curious about the size of your team. How big is it? How small is it? So I hope I didn't miss that.
Oh yeah, we are a team of 4 designers today.
Cool, awesome. And you mentioned that you received a lot of feedback through Figma. And my question is like, how did you manage that? Who was responsible to answer? What system you used to sort through that?
Specifically for that Figma example, it was myself and my partner in crime, Kevin Canello, who also co-authored this article. We literally responded to every question.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah.
It's all right. No walk. Yeah, I guess we both from a large corporation, and it's for me it's refreshing to hear your optimism. Just amazing. My question is really that how, I guess, well, part of your optimism may come from enabling company culture. And I'm wondering that how you've been working for IBM for like 7 years, you said?
Yeah, 6.
Yeah, 6-ish. Okay, so my question is, how have you overcome the various design maturity levels of IBM, or it's been always like this? Like whatever you find out, it's like, yeah, get it done, do it, nice, happy celebrations and all that. I'm just wondering, because sometimes it's super difficult how I feel that, regardless of your positive, attitude and your optimism and so forth, sometimes enabling is missing from, have you said sea level or beyond? I really wonder how do you feel that IBM, how do you guys so super optimistic?
My manager's sitting right in front of me, so I might need to
See you in the bar.
filter. No, just kidding. I can give you a transparent answer. I cannot say staying optimistic is easy. It actually is more hard than it is easy. Like more days are more devastating than it is what I would say. But I can't really speak for the company or folks at IBM. Maybe other designers in this, could speak for it too. But personally, my way finding in this like vast scale of enterprise design where people don't give me resources to do my job, or they just give me bigger problems every time, more hurdles, higher hurdles. But I try to keep my optimism to my personal goals. Like, if I believe this is something that matters to myself and I have my personal definition of success, that is what I go for. I can't really say this will stay this way forever for the next project or the next designing Yes the Odds chapter. But yeah, I would say that's like my part of the story, and that's how I keep things up and I keep the fire up. But also, I know this may sound obvious, but celebrating the wins was a really big incentive for me, because as funny as it sounds, for me to meet my teammates physically was just a really big benefit. I don't know, it doesn't sound like it, but it was emotionally. And every time we met as a team, whether it was workshop or award ceremony or whatever, just to travel to see each other, like we were revamped, like emotionally, like day and night, very different. So that was my emotional factor and influence for keeping my optimism. But yeah, I can't speak for IBM entirely.
Well, my question is, as IBM is such a global company, how were the challenge when you were talking about trust and openness? How was with so many people in that challenge that was creating this open cloud?
Could you rephrase your question? Sorry.
With IBM being such a global company, how was like working with so many people, whether like designers that were not close to you or developers that you have to get in contact with?
I think that's pretty tightly coupled with the optimism topic. Like, because I personally really wanted to achieve this, I don't really know why. I was just really excited about like the conditions of being challenged. And for me, like, I really focused on closely connecting with all individuals on IBM Cloud, whether they were designers, developers. I think in total we have about 170 or more, like designers and developers together. But sometimes I'm amazed myself, because when I open my Slack DM, like I have DMs with everyone across the platform. I also try my best to meet them in person. Today, being in Budapest is also one reason of it, because I've never met my Hungarian colleagues in IBM up until this point, but I really wanted to, because meeting in person creates invaluable, like, emotional connections. So I think it's a combination of those two things. Like, definitely staying in touch, whether it's virtual, whether it's remote, whether it's just looking at people's on video calls or actually going to see them, but also really spending that time to work with them and making those individuals feel like you are working with them but not against them, I think is like a key way to build trust. And honestly, it's very exhausting. I think it's very emotionally draining to do that for all the contributors, all the individuals on the platform, but it really pays off. And then I think it's a very important skill to have as a design system designer, leader, or yeah, any expert. Yeah.
Questions?
Yeah.
No, sorry.
Nora, did you have a question?
Just, I thought that you should mention how you work, because there's a bigger team who manages the design system, that is a carbon team.
Yeah.
And how you work together, like your small team and the big team, like
Small team,
your
big team.
relation with the carbon, because that's maybe it's important to know for those who are not IBMers.
Yeah, so like this part of the slide, right? Like how we collaborate with the carbon design system? Yeah, during the Carbon for Cloud project itself, we did drive our initiative pretty independently with the carbon design system team, because building components at the carbon design system level required many more processes, procedures, testing, validation, accessibility, standards to be compliant, and etc. So we kind of, as cloud, took this as our side secret project, but we stayed in connection with the carbon design folks, the design principals, design executives leading the carbon design efforts to make sure they are aware of all the updates, all the pushes, all the changes that we are making. And also we consulted and closely collaborated with them in terms of like sharing feedback, updates, and new releases that we are headed. And all of us try to make sure that these changes were not just changes itself. It is on brand, it is consistent, it is still new and fresh, and maintains the scope of solving the problems that are emergent in our user flows specific to IBM Cloud. So what's really interesting now is that the Carbon Design System team was impressed with the ways that we played around and stretched the boundaries of Carbon for Cloud using Carbon. So they have made something very similar where they're calling it like experimental, I think Carbon Labs and experimental, to collaborate and gather all of these explorations, not just in the cloud level, but other organizations like security, carbon fiber products, software, so they can gather all of that to then transform a new version of the carbon design system. So I hope I answered your question, Jen.
Okay, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for, it's time for a lot of thank you. So first, thank you so much for thank you so much to the presenters for having this great talk. So thank you Jiang, Fanny, and Gerger. Round of applause now. Special thanks to the UX Budapest team members, Annika, Gigi, and Judith. Thank you so much for making this event happen. It was a pleasure working with you. Super kudos to Yoshi Sabu, my colleague, who was a superhero in the logistics of this event. And also, thank you all for coming and being here and being such a great community. This is the end of the presentations, but the networking and the discussion should start now. So we have roughly like 30 minutes to hang around here, and then we can all head to Grund. The only like security tip that I wanted to share is, as you see, we have balconies, so if you're hanging around to the area and go to the balcony, you can actually lock yourself out because you need the best to come back. So don't do that, or if you do that, just find an IBM colleague who can get back here, but just Don't lock yourself out. Right, right. So let's start networking. Thank you.
Don't-